Hi, my name's Bill Clark. I'm here to preview a new book of mine called Pursuing Sustainability, A Guide to the Science and Practice. Sustainable development has been a long-term aspiration of humanity, pursuing our well-being, improving our well-being in the present without doing so at the expense of other people in other places or our children and grandchildren in the future. Over the last couple of decades, this general aspiration has become more focused and vigorously pursued at all levels, individual, corporate, governmental, and so on. Most recently, in December of last year, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted a set of Sustainable Development Goals to succeed the Millennium Development Goals as the basic guidelines and framework on global development for the 21st century. The problem, therefore, is not whether sustainable development is a goal worth pursuing, but rather how it can be done effectively. Our colleague on this campus, Amartya Sen, has long argued that the two ingredients of a successful pursuit of sustainability are informed agitation. Agitation because sustainability is at its heart a fundamentally redistributive agenda. Redistributive in that it is taking the potential unfairness of present local generations, building their livelihoods and well-being at the expense of others, and redistributing that to take account of the people on whose backyards we dump our current garbage and the people into whose future we send the results of our consumption. So agitation will be necessary on the front lines of politics and social unrest, simply because vested interests have a set of habits in mind which are wholly incompatible with sustainable development. Informed, the informed part of agitation, is necessary because so many of the ills we face in the sustainability agenda are because of invisibilities, things that without the aid of science we can't see, whether those are greenhouse gas emissions turning into climate change, lead in our drinking water, or vanishing species in the rainforests on the other side of the world. Informed agitation because without new technologies and policies to help us guide action into the future, the hope of achieving sustainability is small. So in the past decades, there has been no absence of either science to do the informing or of agitation on the front lines, 360.org, Save the Rainforests, Fair Trade Coffee, and the like. The problem is that too often the two have remained disconnected, siloed, ad hoc. Piles of science have built up that don't see use on the front lines of development agitation. Agitators often end up pulling on levers of power that, even if they succeeded, would actually have little effect on our long-run prospects. My colleagues and I, Pam Matson, Dean of Earth Sciences at Stanford, and Christopher Anderson, Professor of Political Science at Colorado, therefore set out to write this book to help connect the pieces, to help our colleagues, both in the scientific communities and the practice communities, to see how their work fit together, to provide an overall framework in which we could see where we're doing well and where we're doing badly, and to help, as it were, guide sustainable development, guide the pursuit of sustainability if more effectively into the future. The way we've gone about that is to borrow from current political practice a focus on sustainability as promoting inclusive well-being over the long run. We've drawn from current scholarly practice to see the foundations of sustainability in the underlying set of capital asset stocks on which societies now and societies in the future draw to build their well-being. We've drawn from that the vision that pursuing sustainability is fundamentally about managing those asset stocks so that the social value that is inherent in them is passed on to future generations in at least as great a variety, as much fuel in the tank as we got from the generations that handed development on to us. Which capital assets? Well, clearly the manufactured or produced capital that is the center of GNP estimates, but also human capital, health, education, natural capital, the environment and resource base we draw on, social capital, the rules, norms, regulations that craft how we think we ought to conduct ourselves vis-a-vis the planet and future generations. And finally, knowledge capital itself, the buildup of understanding of the world around us and technologies for altering that world that give us some hope of altering the trajectory we're on. We address in a central part of the book the current understanding of the complex, interrelated social environmental systems in which that management of assets needs to be performed. We address the governance challenge of crafting arrangements through which more people can cooperate in achieving sustainability goals and sideline those who would prefer to pursue their own special and selfish interests. And finally, we focus on what we know about the conditions and procedures that make knowledge viable and usable in the agitation sphere to advance sustainability on the front lines. Ours is a short book, and we hope an accessible one. It's meant as a complement, not a substitute, for the longer tracts on sustainability in agriculture, in buildings, in health, and so on, of which there are many out there in the world, and on which ours relies to provide the detailed background information that's necessary to push agendas forward. We therefore hope it will be useful to people who are teaching classes and want a broad framework in which to fit their own expertise and interests, to people in the corporate sector trying to reorient their companies towards a broad sustainability agenda, and of course for people in governments and activist organizations around the world who are pushing for sustainable development. Thank you.